Hey guys, it's Friday evening and Venus Star Point is coming up on Sunday morning, a little over 36 hours from now. So I thought I'd better get this out. And the star point is when Venus conjuncts the Sun, so it's the exact midpoint in terms of time of the Venus retrograde cycle. So Venus has already gone into retrograde motion, and it's about halfway through the retrograde. Um, it started at 28. It'll conjunct the Sun at 20, and then we'll go back to 12. Um, so, yeah, let's talk about all things Venus, Aphrodite, Inanna. Uh, you know, go back to the old goddesses. Um, the retrograde cycle of Venus in particular is like a journey through the underworld, and I say that because uh, you can tell from the use of certain numbers in the Bible and other scripture that what the cycle of Venus means, and so it's kind of hard to think back to imagine how tuned in people would have been to the night sky 2,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, and Venus is the brightest object in the sky after the sun and the moon. She's so bright that apparently sometimes can cast a shadow. I don't think that's going to happen a lot these days with all the light pollution, but and of course being very visible right around sunset or sunrise, depending on what part of her cycle she's in. People were very aware of Venus, and Venus is a very beautiful object in the night sky. And so when she would disappear as the evening star, it was kind of a big deal. Um, and she would then reappear 40 days later. So, the number 40 tends to show up. I'm going to talk particularly about the Bible in some pretty major stories. Now, I can't prove that the whoever wrote down these stories or originated these stories, um, because probably they were oral tradition for centuries before they were written down. So medicine men, shaman, priests, maybe came up with these stories. I can't prove that this number 40 has to do with the Venus cycle, but you know, I think it does, because of the kinds of stories it shows up in. So of course we have Noah's Ark, and we have the storm that lasts for 40 days and 40 nights, and then we have the Exodus, which lasted for 40 years. Where the Israelites were lost in the desert, and then we had Jesus's temptation in the desert when he's tempted by Satan, and it's in the midst of this 40-day and 40-night fast and sort of kind of like a vision quest that he did. And then 40 days, I believe, also was, I think, the time between when he was crucified and ascended into heaven. And then we also have Buddha sitting under the banyan tree for 40 days before he was enlightened. And I'm sure it shows up in tons of other places, as a lot of these numbers do show up cross-culturally, like the number 7, number 12, and so on. And so all these stories have something in common, which is they're all about this ordeal that people go through. and it's like a dark night of the soul or journey into the underworld, a test, and then they kind of come out the other side and into a much brighter day. So that's what we're in the middle of right now is this Venus's journey through the underworld, and Aphrodite, which is the Greek name for Venus. I don't believe she had a journey through the underworld. She did could create hell for other people, but she herself didn't have one. If you go back further to Inanna, the Sumerian or Babylonian goddess, Inanna, I think would be the same as Ishtar or Ashtarte. Inanna did have a journey to the underworld, and she was, I believe, associated with Venus. And they're, in the Greek myths, the two goddesses that did have a association with the underworld. That, well, at least two that I'm thinking of right now, maybe more, is Persephone, who was abducted by Pluto, and then her mother, Demeter, or Ceres, who went to retrieve her. So, yeah, so, I think since the modern planets came about, especially Pluto, Neptune, definitely Chiron, I think we've kind of relegated this idea of the journey to the underworld to those planets, sort of the more spiritual, transpersonal planets, and Venus has sort of become more mundane, more about mundane issues of love and being seen and artistry and stuff like that, and not so associated with the heavier issues of a journey to the underworld. And it really depends on your chart, on where it's falling, as to how this is going to show up for you. And that's always going to be the case. I'm always going to say that, because I don't like to really say, hey, this is how this transit's going to feel. I have no idea how this transit's going to feel for you. You might be feeling nothing at all. Now, I have Pluto transit and a Neptune transit going on, and the Venus went retrograde, stationed retrograde at 28 degrees, so it formed a yod with Neptune and Pluto. So it's tying into some bigger issues for me, and I have Venus pretty strong in my chart, especially in all the Earth houses. So the houses that you would look at for career. I've got 3 planets in Libra in my South Node. That's in my second house, and then Venus is in my 6th house, conjunct my Moon, and then Venus also rules my midheaven. So, a couple of days in to the not even the retrograde, but the shadow period, my Facebook page was hacked. So that's like a total career, just blast. And it's in, my 12th house. So, but the other issues are coming up. I mean, Venus is going to be second chakra or fourth chakra kind of stuff, so how we relate to erotic energy, how we relate to love energy. And then, Venus likes to be seen, and she's in, the sign of Leo. Leo likes to be seen. So, there's a lot of issues that are going on, so with, I've got Leo on the cusp of my 12th house, So, Leo's ruled by the sun, so, there's something about, for me, wanting to, stay in the background with Leo in the 12th house. And my actual sun is in the 4th house, so that theme is sort of doubled in my chart. So, that's another issue this is bringing up for me. Just like doing these videos is a real struggle. I mean, I don't know how many times I've started these videos. I mean, I did it twice this morning at the beach, and just stopped, and just wasn't going the way I wanted it to go, or whatever. So hopefully, this retrograde is going to help me with that, help me get through that. And so every 8 years this retrograde comes up in Leo, it's in the same place in my 12th house. 8 years ago I might have been 2 degrees off, and then 2 degrees off 8 years back. The star point actually started in Virgo for me around 5 degrees, and that was right around my ascendant's at 2 degrees Virgo. But even back then, it would have been dipping into the 12th house. So, this Venus star point for me has always involved the 12th house, and sometimes, most of the time, has involved my ascendant as well. I think this is the first time where, it's completely in my 12th house. It's still stationed 3 degrees from my ascendant, so that probably counts, but now it's completely in my 12th house. So again, you can look at that if you can think back, in 8-year cycles. It's very dependable. It's like within 2 days, the start point, within a few days of 8 years, and within a few degrees, that Venus will have been at the exact same point in your chart, a couple of degrees off. And the star points go clockwise. They go against all the other planets. They go in the same direction as the nodes. So, when you go back 8 years, you're going to add 2 degrees, not subtract, like you would, for other things. So yeah, that's Venus in the Bible. Like I said, I'm sure that 40 shows up in a lot of other places. And with the star points, there are numbers related to that show up everywhere, and this is, a real big kind of rabbit hole we can go down. If you're really interested in it, I would search like on YouTube for Randall Carlson, and throw in like the number 72 or 144, or just Randall Carlson sacred geometry or numbers, and you'll find the video I'm talking about, and he goes into all this. But basically, as some of you may know, the Venus retrograde cycle makes an exact pentagram in the sky every 8 years. It retrogrades 5 times, about once every 19 months. So that's 5 times in 8 years. And so these points, which are counted as the point where it conjuncts the sun. So it's not the point where it goes retrograde or comes out of retrograde. It's the point right in between where it conjuncts the sun. And so all those points are exactly 72 degrees apart, and so it makes a pentagram. And it turns out that there's a lot of numbers encoded in the pentagram. So the angles, first of all, 72 and 108 that you can find. Now, 108 is the most sacred number in Hinduism that I know of. So like if you get a mala, generally there'll be 108 beads, unless you're getting like a little wrist mala or something. So 108 is sacred in Hinduism, and 72 you find all over the place. There's like 72 angels of the zodiac or something in the Kabbalah. Um, you got 144, which is double 72, which shows up quite a bit. And then you got 432, which is 6 times 72, or 4 times 108. Stay with me, math haters. 432, like if you've read Graham Hancock, that shows up everywhere. So it's not just like in the Bible, but it's in Mayan stuff, and it's in Hindu stuff, and it's all over the place. 432, 72, 108, 144. These numbers are showing up in all the sacred scriptures of the planet. Now it turns out that inside the pentagram, through some very basic math, you can find the golden mean, which is created by the Fibonacci sequence, and the golden mean, or phi 1.618, has been found in nature. It's when you look at the Nautilus shell and the spiral galaxies. It's a proportion. It's the divine proportion. You can find it in the Greek architecture and famous paintings and all that. So that is encoded. Now think about it, because Venus is about divine proportion. Particularly, when she's ruling Libra. Okay, she's all about beauty and divine proportion, and her retrograde cycle makes a five-sided figure that gives us the divine proportion, gives us the formula for the divine proportion. That is pretty mind-blowing. Now, did the Sumerians or the Babylonians know this? I don't know. It is interesting, though, that they had this 360, 60. They had kind of a base 12 counting system. So that's why we still have 60 minutes in an hour and 60 seconds in a minute, and that's why even in the zodiac, we've got 360 degrees, and then we divide each degree by 60 minutes. So there's something about this base 12 that they've tried to push the metric system on everybody, and Great Britain and America, the United States, and a couple other countries, they've retained the old base 12 stuff, where we have 12 inches to a foot, and so on. And so maybe there's a recognition, through with some of the people in the know, that there's some power, there's some magic in this base 12 system. But yeah, these numbers show up everywhere. Even this is crazy. The diameter of the sun is 432,000 miles, and that's off by like 0.7 miles. Now, how is that even possible? Because they wouldn't have known the diameter of the sun back then. Maybe they did. And then the diameter of the moon is 2,160 miles, and that again, it's off by just less than a mile. 2,160 is 30 times 72. So these numbers show up even in places where they really shouldn't. So it kind of makes me wonder if we are living in some kind of a simulation. I don't think it's a simulation, but I think there is something. I believe there's an intelligent design. Let's say that to the universe, and I think people have picked up on it. So yeah. So this is anyway, all this kind of sacred geometry and sacred number stuff is all encoded with Venus, so it's much more of a heavyweight. You know, if you know, that's probably not the best metaphor to use for a feminine planet, but it's Venus is a lot deeper, I think, than maybe we give her credit for. And yeah, I think I'll end it there. You know, welcome any questions and comments, and if you want to talk about how this retrograde cycle is going for you. Oh, I will say one more thing. So yeah, I was talking about Venus, you know, this hitting my career stuff, money stuff, and Venus is, you know, even without being in your Earth houses, Venus is related to wealth and money, you know, because that second house is Taurus, and that's all about wealth, but it's also about erotic energy. And then, you know, if you look at Libra, you know, we've got the scales, so we're weighing things up, we're measuring things. So, you know, I got to thinking about, you know, how our relationship to wealth or money is related to our relationship to erotic energy and love, because it's all Venus. And yeah, it's basically all energy. So this Venus retrograde, you know, can show up almost anywhere, you know, because, you know, when we're talking about all those significations, I mean, that covers a huge swath of life. So yeah, let me know, you know, how it's hitting you. You know, maybe you haven't noticed it, and that's fine too. Like I said, it's not going to hit everyone the same way. But yeah, please share the video, or, you know, I appreciate any support that you can give me. And my page to book a reading is Patrick Flaherty, astrology.com. But my Facebook page is Evolutionary Spirit Astrology. So do not go to Patrick Flaherty Facebook page, because that has been hacked. But my WordPress site is totally fine. You know, my PayPal is totally fine. It's just my Facebook page is no longer mine. So yeah, I've got the same tag now, Evolutionary Spirit Astrology, on YouTube and Facebook. And, you know, I'm not sure if I'm going to keep that, but I needed to call it something. So that's where I'm at right now. All right. Happy Venus retrograde, everybody.